IPMNation.com.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. We're about ready to launch, just seconds away from launching tonight's episode of All Natural Being. Thank you so very much for making us number one here on the IPMNation.com platform. Here we, as I like to say, here we go.
Live from the Outpost Studios in Columbus, Ohio, you're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Brought to you by IPMNation.com. Get ready for the gong heard round the world.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Welcome, and thank you for stopping by the number one rated show here on IPMNation.com, episode 286 of the Gong Heard Round the World. You're in to All Natural Being. It's a very exciting show we have planned for you this evening. Some big announcements coming in light of all the other announcements we've had this week. But I wanted to let you know that All Natural Being is broadcast as it happens here on IPMNation.com. Now with a multicast, we're live on Facebook, on YouTube. We're live over at allnaturalbeing.com itself. And of course, on IPMNation.com/ANB now. And the new Brian Brawdy app. Now, we have the beta test of the app coming this evening, so I want to thank everyone that will, we're going to go through a little bit later how you can download and become one of the beta testers for the All Natural Being app. But either way, we're always live from the Outpost, the Mortal Up Studios here in Columbus, Ohio, with rebroadcasts on iTunes and iHeartRadio. We're very thankful for everyone that's helped us reach that goal, iHeartRadio. Thank you so very much, and let me say greetings wherever you are here in the Garden of the Mortals. Think about it. Pretty cool gig, this labyrinth of life, running it the way we do. So let me say, given that gig, hello from the truest parts of your mind. Because in fact, this is your labyrinth. The ups, the rights, the left, the downs, the pivots, the swerves. All cul-de-sacs, no dead ends, admittedly some blind alleys every so often. But we're still here, still have our shot at running the table. And that's why we're always putting your heart's highest priority top of your list. We're putting, if you will, your primal scream front and center in your life because that's where it belongs. Forgetting all of your critics, ignoring all the different people that are absolutely certain that this is how you should lead your life. You should do this or you should do that. Forgetting all of that. We're simply talking about what it takes for you to reinstall and reinstate the true wit and wisdom of your inner whisper, ignoring the critic spew, ignoring the status quo. We're talking about rebooting your robust, finding your ferocious, all in time to out-brutal the brutal. That is the cut and shuffle that fate can deal us on a daily basis. Not saying it does every day, but from time to time, fate absolutely attempts to chop block us. So that's why I say all the time, that's when you have to bring your own bold. Once and for all. No holds barred. But before we hit it this evening, as I like to do every evening, I want to say hello to my friends here in the United States and Canada, Mexico, the UK, my good friends in Ecuador, wherever it is, some in Ecuador, some traveling now. My friends in China, the Philippines, Brazil, India, Australia, Germany, Italy, and France. Nigeria is now on our list. Welcome. Turkey, Japan, Singapore, Thailand, Belgium, Sweden, Israel, South Africa, Egypt, Puerto Rico, Kenya, the Netherlands, Colombia, Greece, and Ireland, Peru. Think about that. Peru, hello. Poland. Thank you so very much for joining us wherever you are here in the world. It truly is my honor to be able to hang out and to have this time. So it's great to have you with us. Again, fire it up to be driving your bandwagon, to be your biggest fan, to be your virtual hitchhiker. I love the idea if you're on the go and you've got something going on, just take me to the gym, put me in the cup holder of your car or your truck, wherever you're headed, just take me. Stand in line at a grocery store. I may not be as entertaining as some of those magazines over on the wall, but I got to be cheaper. So I love being your virtual hitchhiker. But before we jump into tonight's show, let me ask you this one question. It's been kind of ricocheting around in my mind today. Why would we let anyone hijack our cognition? Why would we let anyone play us like a sock puppet? The days of needlessly torturing yourself by being someone else's tool, well, those days are over. They can be over as soon as you go, yeah, I'm done. I've had enough. I'm not going to settle for it. I'm not going to stand for it anymore. Because I believe, as I said over on Facebook this morning, it's time to take your life into your own hands. What are we waiting for? Here's your opportunity to mortal up, to show them what you're made of. So what do you say? Let's go kick in some doors. You know, I've been thinking about that, as I said. I've been thinking about it all day. Why would we let anyone play us like a puppet? Why would we, at any turn, go, yeah, I'm a marionette. I'll just let someone give me my opinion. I'll let someone give me, we did a little post earlier that says, if you want to rest in peace, you got to live in passion. You got to go home fully spent. And that's what it means to mortal up now. That's what it means to put your heart's highest priority top of your list, to put your primal scream front and center in your life. To give this shot right now in life, to give your labyrinth the run that you're built for. Your potential just this side of infinity, and to apply that potential to place your heart's highest priority, top of your list. And then ultimately, as I say again, if you want to rest in peace, you see that, someone passes, you go R.I.P., rest in peace. If you want to rest in peace, the key is to live in passion now. Because there will come a day where we're not going to have the option to live in passion. There will come a day where we go, you know what? I wish I had done that 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years ago. There's going to come a day where we no longer have the ability to live in passion. That's what we're going to talk about this evening. Let me get over here to the thread. I want to say hello to a couple people after Moot, look at that. I did it already. Let me say hello to Henry. Good evening, everyone. Henry, good evening to you as well. Thank you for joining us. Shane, hello. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. Wayne, thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. Thank you for all your help today, too. We have a special announcement coming up here at about 1:15. A very special guest. We'll tell you all about what we've been working on. Rita, hi, you all. Hi, you all as well to Rita. Thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. As Rita says, that's all you have. This particular moment in all of time, people go, I'm just killing time. What? Yeah, I just have some time to kill today. What? As Rita says, this is not a dress rehearsal. And you sure don't want to come back and try it again? You know what, Rita? I love that idea. She says, no regrets. We don't want to have to come back and try it again. Right? No, let's perfect it right now in this moment. Let's make your potential on the probability scale. Let's just blow it off the other end. And the bonus of that is that we no longer allow people to play us like a hand puppet. I know, I say it all the time, I'm not going to do it. But, you spend a little bit of time on social media, you spend any time on the news, and all these people are enraged. going to think if they used a little bit of that energy to put their heart's highest priority top of the list, what would life be like? Not just for them, but for us, for all of us. Instead, we're going to be enraged. As I say all the time for hotheads wrapped in thin skin, outrage is the new black. But what if we weren't so busy being outraged? What if we weren't so busy feigning that we've been victimized? What if we really believe that the days of torturing yourselves can be over as soon as you say, I'm not going to let anyone else treat me like a tool? How would our energies be spent then? Henry says over in the thread, let's get it right this time. Absolutely. So as we ask every evening, what would it take for you to put your heart's highest priority top of your list? All right, don't forget you can give us a call, 833-462-3968, 833-462-GO-BU. It's toll free if you want to give us a holler. Also, I should make mention of the fact that we're pushing ahead pretty full steam, as a matter of fact, with 81 to win, our attempt at setting the Guinness World Record, or the Guinness World Records, and they have a book, but they like to be called the Guinness World Records, an attempt for the longest call-in radio talk show. We've got that coming up. Let me say good evening also to Kelly. Kelly, thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. We've got that attempt coming up. We're going to do our 24-hour attempt later this month. Yeah, just to see if I sticking with the sailing metaphors, if I got the legs for it. So we'll be doing our 24-hour attempt over Labor Day. Thank you for everyone that's volunteered to call in and volunteered to stop by, volunteered to help. Everything to see if we can pull this off. I want to thank them for that. And then we're also getting ready for Squeegee TV. Now, here's something that I mentioned briefly in the open, but you may not know. You can catch, look, technical minds a heck of a lot smarter than I am, especially when, we're talking about, Wayne Noel. Technical minds a lot sharper than mine has worked to figure out, okay, so how can we broadcast to Facebook and to YouTube and to allnaturalbeing.com if you're over there and you want to pick up the link. And if you want to pick up your phone, now you can even get the show, live show, right at ipmnation.com, or we've been working on the app. Android app is already done. We're going to announce a beta test here in just a little bit and how you can get that beta test. Good evening to Matt. Matt, thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. We were just saying that you can get the show now live over at ipmnation.com. It'll be broadcast there. And thanks to our friends at Telestream's Wirecast, pretty soon we're going to be putting the show up to the cloud, right? I know, the cloud, whatever that means. We're going to be putting the show up to the cloud. And what that means is it can be broadcast to multiple sites. So we really do. Thank you. Good evening, Jeff. Nice to see you, brother. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. Rita, you're right. It is awesome. I think so, too. Wayne's a sharp guy. Jeff, hello. How are you, sir? Pretty sharp guy. And to be able to figure all this out has been something else. So we'll be announcing that here in just a few minutes. Let me say hello to Janile. Good evening, Janile. Thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. Janile, let us know, is that photo competition that you're involved in, when does that go down? I'm sorry I don't know the exact dates, but let us know how that's going, how you are, how you're faring in that competition. 833-462-3968, 833-GO-BU. Gnarls Barkley. Jeff, I have to tell you, I can't think of you, brother, without thinking of that song. I just can't. You are live on YouTube right now. Henry, thank you very much. Gnarls Barkley. I'm with you, Jeff. Boy, those were the days, weren't they? We're live on YouTube. So that means now Facebook, YouTube, and we're also live. I think, Matt, if you're still with us here in the thread, if you could let us know, we're coming through on ipmnation.com. So clearly what we want to be able to do, and in the talks, we want to be able to say, wherever you are in this particular moment in all of time, we want to continue to be your biggest fan. We want to continue to be driving your bandwagon so that when it comes to putting your heart's highest priority, Wayne says also live on BrianBrawdy.com. Wayne, thank you very much. So we want you to be able to pick up the show so it's not an inconvenience to you. You go, oh, I might not be near my computer, or I might not be here, right? RTV, great times. Matt says, yes, indeed. We're live now at ipmnation.com also. So if you want to catch the feed over there, or as we're going to announce here in a few minutes, if you don't mind, why don't we go ahead and do it now? It's just about 15:15. Janelle said, I should know within the next week or so which photos are chosen. I will keep you posted. Thank you, Janelle, very much. I'm rooting, as you know, we're rooting for you. Rita says, way to go, Wayne. You know what, Rita? It's just something else. It's a brilliance I don't possess. Where Wayne goes, sit by. Let me write some code for that. What? So let's just do it now. We're going to have a very special caller here, I'm hoping here in a little while, that'll walk us through it. But we have our beta test going for our app. So if you have an Android phone, and I guess we're busy working on an app for iOS, for your iPhones and your iPads, that kind of thing. But if you have an Android phone, we're going to walk you through here in a little bit how to go. And I think you can go to brianbrawdy.com. And on brianbrawdy.com, you'll see a little button that says Android app, I believe. And if you hit that, then you hit OK, and it walks you through some steps. And you got to do it on your phone. You do it on your Android phone. But we're doing a beta test, so we would love it if you could give us an idea of, what works, what doesn't work, what you like about it, what you'd like to see, what you don't particularly care about if it's there. And we'd like to do that. And if you don't mind being a beta tester, that would be great. Let's see. I'll do this very quickly. So we're going to go here. See if I can get this right. Good evening. Welcome to All Natural Being. Who do we have with us?
Yeah, hi, this is Wayne.
Hey, Wayne Noel. How are you, sir?
All righty, how you doing?
Well, we were just busy bragging about you here over on the thread where I say to people, Wayne will be going, hey, you got 5 minutes? And I'll say, yeah. And he'll go, all right, let me call you back. And then you call me back in like 4 minutes and you go, I was bored, so I wrote some code. You're now like live on Mars. So it's just something that escapes me, your ability to write code the way you do. But can you kind of clue us in? What do we have to do tonight if we have an Android phone? What do we got to do, Wayne, to walk through the steps to get the All Natural Being app on our phone?
Basically, you just need to go to brianbrawdy.com.
Okay.
Using the browser on the phone, on the Droid.
On the Droid phone, okay. Or you can go to brianbrawdy.com or allnaturalbeing.com if that's easier to spell.
No, to get the app, you've got to go to brianbrawdy.com.
Very cool. Okay, so go to brianbrawdy.com.
And then just below, right inside your picture.
Okay.
Or on the phone, it may be just below the picture.
Okay.
We have a link to Android beta app available here.
Okay. So if someone clicks from a Droid phone, if someone clicks on that button, Wayne, what happens next?
The first thing that's going to happen is it's going to go ahead and want to start a download.
Okay.
Everyone's going to see a message which is basically going to say, this application may be dangerous to your system.
Ooh, I like that.
Of most. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I like that. We say in the open all the time, there's a warning, right? With a psychological loofah for your soul. If you're not ready to channel your all-natural being or your superhuman status, viewer discretion is advised. So that's cool that our app has that same kind of viewer discretion, right?
Right.
Yeah. I like it.
Anyway, you're going to tap on it on the OK.
Okay.
And then it's going to go ahead and start the download.
Okay.
Once it finishes downloading, you're going to tap open.
Okay.
And then you're going to tap on downloads.
So open and then downloads.
Downloads.
Okay.
You're going to tap on the app.
Okay.
And it's going to, you're just going to have to answer a few questions as it goes through. It's going to ask you if you want to let the app use your phone. You're going to say no.
Okay.
It's going to ask you if you want to give access to contacts on your phone. You're going to say no.
No.
And then it's going to ask you about a location.
Okay.
On the location, select yes.
So no, and yes, because I don't want to have access to your phone. I don't want to have access to your contacts, right? So no,
right.
And
the only
yes.
thing you want to pretty much know is where the calls, where the viewers are coming from.
Sure.
What area,
okay.
what part of the country.
Sure, that'd be nice to know. Sure.
And then once that's done, you can open up the app, and it'll take you to the radio. I believe it's the radio page.
Okay.
Of your website.
Okay.
And there you can just click on the arrow for the video between 8 or after 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday through Thursday.
Okay.
And a live show will come up.
The live video feed, not just the audio, but the live video feed will actually come up in the app.
The audio and video.
Audio and video. Wayne, I can't thank you enough. As I say, just brilliant work. I don't know how you do it, and the writing the code is all magic to me, but thank you for all your help and your brilliance in pulling this off. I'm just fired up. Let me say hello real quickly to Ruthie. Ruthie, good evening. We're talking with Wayne Noel, the creator of our app, and he's helping us. Oh, now Matt Connerton is in the thread here. Wayne, you should know, he says, I just downloaded it and opened it. Very nice. Good evening also to David Ray Bowman. Thank you for joining us, brother, here at All Natural Being. So, Henry, Ruthie wants to know what's going on. Matt says he just downloaded it and opened it. He says, very nice. So there's our first beta test, and he says it's going well.
Yeah, and I believe, and Matt's going to have to do some adjustments on IPM Nation, just on the size.
Just on the size, okay. Cheers, Brother Wallman, as well. Nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Henry says he downloaded it. You might know Henry.
Yeah, I think I know him.
You know Henry? You know Henry. Henry Noel says, me too, Matt. Works great. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that intel very much. And then I think what we're saying is over on IPMNation.com, Matt will just adjust some of the, because Matt's another whiz when it comes to internet things. You know what I mean, Wayne? He understands the language. So what you're saying is we'll just adjust the size over it on IPMNation.com. I can't see it right now.
He's probably going to want to shrink the width and extend the length or the height.
Oh, don't we all? Well, I'm working all the time to shrink my width, right? And extend my height. What a great idea. Shrink the width. Now, don't everyone will be texting me going, I'm fat shaming. Right? Now, I'm not saying that. I'm talking about me shrinking the width, extending the height, right? That's all. So he might want to do the same thing. Ruthie says, can I download the app? Ruthie, if you have an Android phone, you can absolutely download the app. Yes, sir. I have a studio guest. You're coming to say hello real quickly? Let me see here. Come on in. Here we go. What do you say? What do you say? Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
Say hi, Mr. Henry.
Hi, Mr. Henry.
Hi, Mr. Wayne.
Hi, Mr. Wayne.
Hi, Miss Rita.
Hi, Miss Rita.
All right. Thank you for joining, right? Our little studio mini executive producer coming by to say hello to everybody. Ruthie, where do I find it? Mr. Henry says,
there.
Hi, Blyden. Mr. Wayne says, hi, Blyden. Ruthie says, where do I find it? Ruthie, if you have an Android phone, you can go to brianbrawdy.com, BrianBrawdy.com, and you can you can have it right from there. I extended the hello to Blyden. It's always something else, when he say, because he's supposed to be in bed, but he hears the gong go off, right? Then he'll come down and he'll go, oh, excuse me. I'd like to come on and be on with you. And then usually when it's about 30 to 45 seconds, his mom catches wind that he's out of bed, right? And then comes down and goes, what are you doing down here? Miss Rita says, love to you, Blyden. I will absolutely let him know, Rita, when I head back after the show. Thank you so very much. So, Ruthie, let us know if you're in. If you have an Android phone, that's how you'll be able to get the app. Matt says it's working good. I know Henry, I believe, has an Android phone. He says it's working good. If you get a chance, give us a call. If there's any questions that you have about the Android app, give us a call. Let us know what's going on. But so far, Wayne, it looks like it's working great.
Sounds good. What I'll do is I'll basically just get off the line here right now, and I'll sit down and watch the comments in case somebody else has any questions.
All right, great. Well, I cannot thank you enough, Wayne, for your expertise and all your time and everything else that you've done and helping out over at brianbrawdy.com as well, because for me, I think it's a Herculean effort to get this code added, and no one else could figure it out, but you most certainly did. So thank you very much, sir, for all your help in getting this app. And we're still continuing to work on the iOS version, right? We don't want people to think that we're being separatist, right? We don't want people to think, it's all about the Androids. So we're working on the iOS. It'll just take us a little longer.
Yeah, that one there, Apple, it just takes a little longer to get through Apple.
Oh, Apple's a little picky, are they?
Yes.
Probably shouldn't say anything. I'll get banned from iTunes now. I'll get an email tomorrow morning going, hey, you said we were picky. Sorry, you're out of here. Right? But I don't even want to go in. I want to get in trouble, Wayne, if I go into what we were talking about today. Other people that have been banned on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, and their app is like through the roof. Gotta love the First Amendment, right? But in any event, enough bad said about Apple. So, I'll get bounced. I don't know how you get bounced from iHeartRadio, but if it can happen, it'll happen to me, right? I tell people all the time, Irish luck, don't believe the hype, right? If I can be banned or bounced, I will. All right, Wayne, we'll let you go. Thank you so very much. I super appreciate it, and we'll talk to you later.
And you have a good night.
Thanks, Wayne. You too.
Bye.
All right, if you get a chance, give us a call, 833-462-3968, 833-GO-BE-YOU. Yes, I extended hellos and loves to Blyden. You should see him. He's so excited to have figured out how to sneak downstairs. But then it's like, as soon as he goes on, excuse me, as soon as he comes on camera, he's caught. I used to say all the time in law enforcement, if you ain't got me on videotape, you ain't got me. But what kind of alibi do you have when you come down and you're on a live segment? Yeah, here comes the warden. You're busted now, pal. All right, so here's what we're talking about this evening. We're talking about if you want to rest in peace, you got to live in passion. And what are you doing? Jeff Wright says, I blame Ashley. Jeff, I'll tell her. It's absolutely true. I'll tell her you said so, Jeff. Right? Because that's just him. He's just, right? He's just nonstop. That I will let Ashley know that you said the same thing. But in order to rest in peace, and I think, I ride this horse a little bit every so often. I ride this horse a little bit because I know how the chance was 50-50 that I recovered from the ailment and the surgeries that I was up against. And I thought, all right, suppose I was one of the ones that tapped out. Suppose I didn't make it. Suppose I only had a minute left to live. Would I regret having not spent more time living in passion? Would I regret having put my heart's highest priority anywhere but other than the top of my list? What if I had put my heart's highest priority in the dustbin, in the back seat, in the junk drawer? What would I feel in those final moments of life? What would I feel? And as I think about it now, I'd be like, yeah, you know what? I should have given my shot in the labyrinth a better run. I didn't exercise. I talk all the time about potential just this side of infinity. I didn't exercise it at all. So for me, it's a blessing in disguise. Henry says, Internet Live killed the radio star. Boy, didn't it? Didn't it, Henry? And we were talking about that, and I'd love for Matt to suggest, because we're doing live video now, but the Internet, the Internet has to stay there because we need the radio. I'm not going to go for a Facebook record, a YouTube record of how many nonstop hours we go, so we're always going to keep the radio there, but I'm with you. Internet Live killed the radio star. I remember when I think that was MTV's first ever video. Back in the days where Ted Koppel was coming out with Nightline. You remember way back then? Kind of dating myself. Rita says, do not should on yourself. That's an interesting point. I like that. We talked before, what was that? The Nietzsche's quote. That the dragon that guards the lair. The dragon that guards all the gold. When the spirit of the lion says, I will, the dragon is covered in scales, and every one of those scales is thou shalt. So I get your point, Rita. Very good one. Do not should on yourself. Having said that, if you want to rest in peace, you have to live in passion. And I begin to look at it this way. We hear all the time about sovereignty, and I'm not making a political discussion now. Let me get a back scratcher. I got to show you this. I don't know if I've shown you this. If we brought this up with my brother Wayne. I was talking to Wayne about my brother Bob making this. It's a railroad tie. Puts it on an anvil, pounds it around, and it's a back scratcher. Oh, man, that works. But here's the concept. That's the spot right there. That's the spot right there. Okay, Matt's putting up a YouTube here in it. Let me see what... And that's something. That works. All right, we got another call coming in. Let's see who we got. And then we go like this. Good evening. Welcome to All Natural Being. Who's with us?
Hey, this is Henry, man. You're kind of getting quiet down there. Come on, fire this up.
Oh, you know what it is? Is it's this back scratcher's like, oh, man. You ever go out for a run You're out, and you have to, like, scratch up and down against, like, a stop sign or a tree or something like that. Got carried away there for a minute. This thing is unbelievable. That's a back scratcher.
That's the bear in you, man. That's the bear in you.
Yeah, that's the bear in you. So how are you, brother? What's going on? I love that quote, by the way. Internet live killed the radio star.
Yep. Internet live killed the radio star.
Now, what do you think about the app? How was it looking? I know you downloaded it because I believe you have an Android. How did it look? And look at all the work Wayne put into it. It's looking like it's rocking and rolling.
Oh, it's looking great, actually. I mean, clear video. It's absolutely perfect. It looks just terrific.
Okay, so Ruthie says, and maybe you can help me here, Henry. Ruthie says, I can't find it. I downloaded and extracted it, but I can't find it. So, Wayne, if you're on, can you jump on the thread and give Ruthie a little bit of help? And then, Henry, I was just getting ready to talk about a concept that you and I have been bantering around while we're seeing if Wayne can help Ruthie there. The concept we were bantering around about in terms of sovereignty, when it comes to, it's popular today to talk about political sovereignty, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about personal sovereignty, and that there's a spiritual sovereignty that's at your core, right? And the disconnect comes when you let your outer layer. It's almost like, remember when we were little, Cracker Jacks? They have the special prize. Oh, or you remember when Lucky Charms, you'd find the little charms buried in with all the other cereal.
Uh-huh.
Well,
the old Halloween cakes. We used to find little trinkets. Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell you a little story. When we were little growing up, my mom used to take chicken pot pies, and she'd put nickels. We didn't realize this because we were still little, but she would flip them over from the bottom and just put them in. But we didn't know, so we had to tunnel all the way down through the top. So we'd find these chicken pot pies. But that's what I'm talking about. Our spiritual sovereignty is like the nickels in those chicken pot pies. It's like the treat inside of the Cracker Jacks. But the disconnect becomes our psychological sovereignty. When we become thin-skinned, when we take in all the mashugana from the marketplace, when we allow the static quo to get in and affect us, that's where there's literally the disconnect. Your spiritual sovereignty is never touched. It's the psychological sovereignty. It's like if you were an M&M peanut. The peanut's never touched. It's the chocolate, the colored chocolate coating that's subject to all the ills of the static quo. What do you think about that?
Well, no, I think you're right. I think initially that's exactly what does happen. But I think when left open, when left to fester, and when left to continue to occur, it does start to cause the spiritual side and the psychological side to start to, it gets just as contaminated. And, especially over time, I think anything that we deal with negatively does affect us in the long run. It just spreads. It just spreads throughout our entire person, and I think that's what does happen in the long term. So that's why it's so important to catch it and to start to rectify it. And it's amazing because it actually affects your health. I mean, the first sign of it is you start to have issues and physical issues where we hurt, we have pain, or we develop lesions, or whatever the case may be. This stuff does affect us physically.
And then one of the things that it also starts to creep in, when people say, oh, I have trouble sleeping, almost like a philosophical fibromyalgia, right? Where people say it just permeates. But I want to make sure that I understand you clearly. So even the spiritual sovereignty is subject to being compromised. If our psychological sovereignty is so ridden with the static quo, it starts to blend into the spiritual sovereignty. It starts to affect, you would think, the treat inside the Cracker Jack. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Again, we are mind, body, spirit. And to be whole, that's what has to be working, mind, body, and spirit. And when something is affected, if not treated or not worked with or not handled or assimilated, it affects the others. It just simply is has a domino effect and just simply will infest the other areas. And yes, absolutely. When you think about it, you take an insult. You You're thin-skinned. Somebody said something, and you take the insult. Well, you allow it to fester, and then you take it personally, and it affects your psyche, saying, "Oh my, wow, I'm not worth it. This horrible thing that was said, and I must just not be worth anything." So yes, absolutely, it will affect you in time.
So what's one of the ways then that we can inoculate ourselves, right? I talk all the time about having headphones. I talk all the time about, just really when I say I couldn't care less about, the joke I made earlier about fat shaming, when Wayne says, oh, you may want to take the video and shrink the width and increase the height, right? But you got to be careful. You can't even you can't even say that where I'm like, oh, I'm always trying to shrink my width and extend my height, because then people go, oh, that's fat shaming. But where did we come to that bifurcation point? Where did we come to that fork in the road where it used to be sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me? Now it's sticks, stones, names, other people's opinions, other people's looks, other people's attitudes. All these things will hurt me. How did we get here? Or is this been cyclical, Henry? Like, does it happen throughout eons, throughout evolution? Is it like the 70-year cicadas? Does it always seem to swing back around, or is it just something of late?
No, I think it's always been here, and I think it's always been in degrees. In fact, we had a very interesting talk with my oldest grandson this evening at dinner, and one of the things that come up, and well, he might be. I hope so he is.
What's his name?
But it was great. It's Aiden, and it was an interesting conversation because he's very much a millennial, and he deals with the language within the millennials now. And I honestly don't know them, so we were asking. He made a comment or said a word, and we didn't know what it was, and I'm still not sure what it is. But
welcome to my world.
To us. And it's like there's so much striving for attention, and whether it's good or bad, positive or negative attention, it's like they're striving so hard for attention that they're trying to pigeonhole themselves by dividing themselves and giving them each little titles that, so separate. It's like they're fighting for their own individualism. And what gets me is in my writings, I'm going in absolutely the opposite direction.
Sure.
I'm trying to say, yes, you're individual, and you need to be able to express your individuality. But when all is said and done, you are part of the whole. You are, your essence, your energy is all part of the source. And so, yes, here in this plane, we work for our individuality, but we've lost sight of the fact that we are actually part of a whole. And that's what we should be really looking at as a whole, not this individual, forcing ourselves to be labeled into these little tiny cubbyholes that are dividing us God, in every way. I was amazed by how much the division is within the millennials now.
Sure.
And so it was a very interesting, I learned an awful lot tonight, which was great.
Well, let me first say hello to Aiden, in case he's listening. Thank you, if you are. Thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. Also want to say hello to Lisa. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us here at All Natural Being. I'm wondering, Henry, then, as I listened to you recount the discussion you had with Aiden, could it be that the reason we seem more inclined now to want to pigeonhole ourselves or cubbyhole ourselves, as you say, is it, do you think there's some type, and I'm not a huge fan of it, as you know, but is there some type of philosophical amnesia that causes us to forget we're a collapse of the wave function, that causes us to forget we're simply a vibration, right? Collapse of the state vector. We're simply a vibration within the field that brings us to being. So because we've forgotten that, because we feel disconnected from that, do you think instead of getting our energy from the bottom up, are we trying to get it from the outside or top down? Is that why it's become so prevalent of late?
I think so. I think that's it. Again, we're striving for attention, and instead of realizing that we are complete, we are whole, we don't need the attention, we are happy. It's just that we have covered ourselves with so much unhappiness, so much the greed that ego has, that we don't feel like we are satisfied, when it's actually ego not satisfied and keeps us going and going and going. Yeah, we're floating out there in this world that even someone, the way they look at us, offends us or scares us. And I think that there's a whole lot of out there as far as fear. The failure on the parental side is just devastating. And when you look at the whole reasons for it, it's one, ego is based behind it because you got to have more, you got to have bigger than everybody else. So therefore, you got to work a lot more. You can't be home, and when you are home, you have no time for yourself. So you ignore the kids anyway, and so the kids are left out there floundering for themselves. And it's not so much that we've forgotten. I don't think we're taught that we were whole and we are complete, that we are satisfied, and we are happy. We're just not taught that anymore because our parents don't believe it.
Okay, but let me ask you this, and before I do, I want to say a quick shout-out to Jeff again. Jeff says, I like listening and reading to those who make me think. You do that. Jeff, thank you very much. To rest in peace, he says, is it to live with passion or to live with purpose? Is there a difference? Henry, I'm going to go in and throw in and say, no, there really isn't a difference, because to live with a purpose is to live with passion. Would you agree, or how would you answer, Jeff? Is there a difference between living within passion or living with purpose?
No difference at all between passion and purpose. I mean, it's simply it's grabbing that golden ring on the carousel. It's the thrill of the roller coaster. It's living life with purpose, and the purpose is to live life.
Sure.
I mean, you don't have to have this, well, I'm going to live life so I can have this big house. No, we live life to live life. And for as short as it is here, why not? To me, no, there's no difference at all with passion or purpose. And I think it's thank you, Jeff, because, I mean, I think that's a great distinction, and it's a great question.
Henry, let me take a call real quick. Good evening.
Roller coaster. It's living life with purpose.
Welcome to All Natural Being.
Hello.
Who do we have?
Hey, this is Shane.
Hey, Shane, how are you, sir?
All right.
Thank you for calling in. Thank you for joining us on All Natural Being. So am I to take it then, Henry's talking about his grandson, and I think he said Aiden. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yes, that's correct.
Aiden, may I ask, is that your son?
It is.
Oh, very well. Please tell him I said hello, and I'm dying to know what is the word, because you can't stump Grandpa Henry. You can't stump him. He's on top of it all. So could I ask, if it isn't too much, what's the word, that just that sparked the conversation?
I don't know I can't remember if it was an exact word, but we kind of got on a conversation about, it's their first day back to school.
Sure.
So they're seeing all of their friends again, and of course, kids grow up over the summer, and
sure,
attitudes change, and people change, and what have you. And it took less than one day at school for the Meshuggah to start,
right,
to use your terminology.
Right. No charge.
And we got on the conversation of labels.
Okay.
And and Henry and I were talking, what is it about this generation that requires a label to be put on everything?
Sure.
And we got to talking about it, and Henry alluded to his point of view, and I agree with that, but I also believe that they try so hard to be unique that they have to put a label on themselves to make themselves unique. And then it just becomes cliche,
Sure.
And then they're not unique anymore, so they come up with something else. But if you just stop and look at yourself, you will see that you are unique without a label.
Sure.
There's nobody else in the world that's like you. But and to your point, it feels like they need the confirmation to come down upon them instead of looking internal and bringing it up amongst
Sure.
themselves. It's got to come from somebody external, and they use the labels to justify it.
Shane, I want to ask you a quick question, but before I do, let me say hello to Darren. Darren, thank you for joining us. Also, Deborah Lee Merchant from Telestream and Wirecast. Deborah Lee, thank you for everything you've done to help us get the show to up to where it's going and the ability to broadcast it out. So, Deborah Lee, it's nice to have you with us. Shane, I've got to ask you, have you taken your son, if I remember the term you said, kicking and screaming against his will, have you taken your son to his first martial arts endeavor like your dad did for you? And if you did, how did it go?
Actually, yes.
Great.
I drug my entire family, both of my boys and my wife, to a Taekwondo school where I was actually an assistant instructor. And there wasn't as much kicking and screaming because they'd been hearing Daddy talk about it.
Sure, forever.
The glory days of tournaments and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So they knew what it was about. There was some trepidation. There was a little bit of fear, but I think it helped that I was in the classroom with them, so they weren't out there on an island by themselves. Now, that being said, I treated them like every other student. There was no preferential treatment.
Sure.
But unfortunately, we had to stop going due to life.
Sure.
But they did enjoy it. Even Aiden, who he doesn't like the physical contact stuff, but he did well. Everybody did well. Really.
Very cool. Very cool.
And I wish we could have stuck with it because, as you know, martial arts is more than just a sport. It's more than just kicking and punching and all that. There's a very spiritual side to it that, for me personally, has helped me grow as a person, both physically and spiritually.
I'll tell you a quick little story, Shane. But Henry, I want to get your point. What do you think about that? Is it that we're on these little islands that we're so disconnected that we do everything we can to find? Just look at social media. You want a tweet or a thumbs up or a share or a like. Is it because we perceive ourselves to be on these small little islands disconnected from everything else around us? So we're trying to get as much bling, as many labels as we possibly can? Is that the reason?
I believe it's very possible that is the way it is. Again, trying to strive for that independent, that individual, that uniqueness. I think that's what it is. I mean, you think about how we used to be judged as a person, based on your school. It was based on sports. It was based on how well you could create a home. Now it's how many likes you get.
Sure.
And people are committing suicide because they've been defriended by somebody. I mean,
Sure.
I think there's a major problem here, and I think you're right. I think if you're a Twitter person, then Facebook doesn't matter to you. If it depends on where your likes are coming from. Oh, that was from Twitter. Okay, that's great. That fight for that individual identity, that your mark in the world, is predicated on your likes. I mean, it's a different way of, I guess, judging. And again, I don't buy into judging.
Sure.
That's not our job. But that's the way we as a human being seem to be going. I wish it wasn't, but it is. And,
so what creates that vacuum?
Adaptations.
What creates, and let me say hello to Kelly Hill very quickly. Kelly, thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. And Kelly has also said she'll come over and help out during our 24-hour marathon over Labor Day. So, Kelly, thank you very much. Come and make sure that I'm awake and keep me up with great conversation. So I thank Kelly for that. What do you think created the vacuum, Henry and Shane, in the first place? Because if you say we're constantly looking for likes, we're constantly looking for endorsement outside of ourselves, then that presupposes a vacuum, right? There's an emptiness, there's a void, there's a hole, there's a cup without a filling. What's the root cause of that, do you think, Henry?
I think the push so far away from ourselves. When we were born, we are as complete as we can get. It's unconditional love. We have these precepts as a child, and we don't have the discrimination. We don't have the judgment. We don't have the ridicule, and yet, because we're not taught it yet. I mean, and as we grow up, we're taught how to hate. We're taught how to be racially discriminatory, when we actually have only one race, but yet we seem to have to divide ourselves down into these different groups.
Camps, gangs, cliques.
Into these gangs. Exactly. These are all, I mean, literally, when you think about people grouping together, you're creating little countries with borders.
Sure.
And so you step across my turf, then I can take you out. Well, what do we have with this whole world? And the military, the invasions here, left and right here, where, you have a border, and then you have a flag, and so you're willing to defend that flag to the death. It was all somebody else's idea. I mean, somebody thought this thing up, and we have all bought into it. And then all of a sudden, when somebody criticizes it, you're anti-patriotic. Well, no, I'm not. I just don't believe that we should have had borders in the first place. And to create this fake world, we now we do it with individuals as gangs or as clubs or as fraternities. These are all little individual islands that have their own little borders that will let you in or not let you in based on your status or your job. I mean, yeah, we do it all the time. Shane?
Yeah, I think we are this new generation is the technology and instant gratification generation, and the technology feeds that instant gratification news.
Okay.
You know, you got the phones, you got your computer, you can look up anything, you know,
Sure.
at a couple of taps on your phone, and then you add in Facebook and Twitter and the likes and, you know, the hashtags and all of that. And if you don't get it right away, then you're like, well, what's wrong with me?
Sure.
Why am I not getting these likes? Or what's wrong with everybody else? Why are they not liking it?
Well, Shane, Darren says here in the thread, there's a validation to be. So maybe we've learned somewhere to look for that validation outside of ourselves. Instead of giving ourselves the stamp of approval, as Darren is saying, we've learned to get that validation from the outside. And as Jeff says, all natural being, yet we have kids growing up without nature, glued to screens. He says, and this impact seems to, you know what I mean? It seems to have a deep impact across generations of kids. I don't know about you, Jeff, but I know in our household, Henry can attest to this, Rita can attest to this, any of my friends, Kelly can attest to this. But when someone walks in a room, your iPad, your iPhone, whatever you're doing, it gets tossed. Like, you know, we'll go out at times at night to restaurants, or, you know, you'll be out somewhere and you'll see 3 or 4 people at a table. They're all on their phones. They're all on their phone.
Yeah.
Instead of having a conversation with the person right across you, you be on the phone. I can't think of anything more disrespectful or rude. Talk about validation. It's no wonder kids walk into a room, no one looks up from their phones, and then we as the older people in the crowd get to sit around and say, well, I don't know about this generation. They don't seem, to be able to give themselves validation. You walk into a room in my house, the phones go away. Well, what's our rule at the dinner table, Henry? No toys, no telephones.
That's right.
You're coming for dinner. And what I'm so excited to tell everyone, and I'm sure you've seen this, Jeff, I know you've seen this, Henry, and Shane, I'm sure you've seen it as well. Kelly, you've seen it. That when you have little ones and they go, oh, can we just eat at the dining room table tonight so that we can all eat together? This all-natural being seems to be built in, seems to be baked in, seems to be cooked in. Right? But then, we're busy playing with our remote controls. Only thing we had to worry about when we were growing up is our parents would say, well, don't sit so close to the TV. It's not good for your eyes. If they only knew. Right? If they only knew. Oh, you can't. It's too close. The biggest part of my life, I thought Walter Cronkite was like a 6-foot-tall head. Right? Because we were all hunkered around. But those were back in the days when the TVs, remember, guys, the black bars that would spin? And my dad would sit there and go, will you please sit up there at the TV and control that little knob to keep that thing from spinning? So the first 6 years of my life, I spent my evenings looking up Walter Cronkite's nostrils. Right? Sitting so close to the TV, they weren't worried about my eyesight then, were they? But I guess that's to the point. Let me say hi to Zoe. Darren, you should know, says, same here, Jeff. Well, Jeff's probably in the feed. He can see that. Rita says, technology and entitlement are the downfall of our youth today. Technology is also the crutch of adults. And I think you're right, Rita. I think if people are going to go, I might be ostracized, or I don't know if anyone's going to pay attention to me, let me seem like I'm distracted on my phone. People will call me and go, you're an ex-cop. What's some advice you can give if my kids are traveling overseas, or they're going to the big city? I love this term. Oh, they're going to the big city for the first time. And I say all the time, don't act like you don't know where you are. Act like you have somewhere to be. Act like you're in command of your six, in command of your situation. And maybe that's a part of what Rita's talking about when she says it's a crutch. Maybe that's a part of it now, where we go, okay, I need to be in control. So if I'm on my phone, I must be busy. I must be important. So everyone give me a thumbs up, or give me this, or give me that, because, I'm tied to this phone. It's at my hip. I'm a busy guy. I'm a busy girl. Henry, what do you think?
Yeah, I know. I think you're right. I mean, look at how this division has come down. I mean, down to terminology. I mean, you had the family unit. Now you have the parental unit. I mean, we keep dividing things down, and technology has become the rule, literally. And as you know, we're finding out, trying to set up the technology for the new step here in the program. We're way ahead of the curve here, and so the technology is not even developed yet. But yet we're looking for the next set of technology in order to do what no one else can do here, and broadcast live video and audio across all of these different platforms.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think the technology being used in a constructive way is absolutely fabulous. And I mean, I'm not against technology at all. I mean, I love the whole concept of what we have, but we have to place it in its correct place, in its correct position of where it is. Because as you mentioned, what's next? AI. Now we don't even have to think for ourselves.
Well, what kills me about AI, Henry, is we haven't perfected human intelligence. Now we're going to infect robots with our sense of an algorithm. I'll go back to what Jeff says earlier in the feed. He said all natural being. Yet we have kids growing up without nature. So Shane, Henry, is that it? Is that because we're not connected to nature, where you can't spend any time in nature without feeling an underlying sense of connection. You know, we look at all the studies today, reams of studies by doctors that say one of the best things you can do for your physical and mental health is to walk barefoot in the grass.
Right.
Because, Henry, you know this, of all the different nerve endings in your feet. You know this, Shane, from martial arts, that sense of being rooted to the earth around you. Maybe Jeff's right. Maybe we're so rooted in technology, we'd want to feel rooted in nature if we could, but we got to send a tweet real quick. Or does this kill you? You know, and here's the thing. I know, and everyone, you'll watch. I'll start losing people on the thread right now. If you're going to be out in Yellowstone and think it's a good idea to take a selfie in March, April, maybe May, a selfie with a grizzly bear den with cubs over your shoulder, I'm rooting for the grizzly bear, right? Somebody's got to get involved and go, whoa, wait a minute. But we're so into blowing the moment at hand by making sure we get a selfie that we can tweet and we can share and we can do all this. We miss the moment just because we're all Ansel Adams.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think, and to Jeff's point, missing out on nature to get that connection again. I don't think you can narrow it down just to nature. We're losing connections with each other. I mean,
Sure.
I mean, I've seen a group of people at a table, instead of actually talking to each other, they're sending texts to each other and having a conversation that way.
Yep.
I mean, how do you call that interaction? I mean, I'll be the first one to admit I'm a big techie. I like all the little gadgets and phones and all that. But my kids have computers and that. But much like your house, we have a rule: no electronics at the dinner table.
Sure.
And we're also huge board gamers too.
Great.
And that's a great way that we connect. And again, the board games come out and the electronics go away. Unless it's you look a phone call coming in and it might be an emergency, it gets ignored until the game is over.
You raised a very valid point, Shane. Where people say, "Well, how did you go to the grocery store? How did you make it without your phone?" Well, I hate to break it to a lot of the younger people listening, but when I was growing up, there were still phone booths, right? Where if you were out and about and you wanted to make a call, you better have a dime. Now, I know people going, "No, Brian, you mean a quarter?" No. I go back long enough to where you needed a dime to make a phone call.
Say the nickel then.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would. Well, I can remember you could get it. You could buy a gallon of gas for your moped for like a nickel.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But maybe that's it. Maybe we're like, maybe this, and I hate to be the conspiracy theorist because it's working out great for Alex Jones. I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but maybe that's the way to sell technology. was sure the way to sell cigarettes. It was sure the way to sell alcohol. It was sure the way to sell any of the other must-haves that we have. Maybe a part of it is, ultimately it's still our own responsibility, but maybe tech companies knew, hey, the greatest way to get them to buy the tech is to addict them to the tech.
Yes.
Right? So let's have all the bells and whistles and flashing lights of a slot machine in Vegas. Could that be it?
Very
I've
possibly.
actually seen
Yes.
studies. I've actually seen studies about that, where that they're claiming they attacked Apple in this particular article, but they were saying that the Apple company is specifically making user interfaces and phones to be addictive, and I don't know if I completely buy into that because, again, I think it goes back to the instant gratification.
Sure.
And being able to get your own personal validation from random people or, your so-called 3,000 friends that you have to give you a like, and that's all they need. And that's the addictive part about it, not the technology itself.
Interesting.
But what the person can get from that technology for their instant gratification.
Interesting. Henry, what do you think?
Yeah, I have to agree. There is a lot of instant gratification that's required, and I think that's part of that is definitely part of the being hooked on stuff or being addicted to it. Again, and the instant gratification literally is from ego.
Well, right, because that's the satellite office of instant gratification, right? That ego, when we talk about the tortured tentacles of ego, that's the way it gets in, right? Like any other parasite, it attaches itself to the host, which is why you've heard me before call it a parasitic ego, or at the very least an ego that needed a shelf life, right? We needed it in the very beginning to teach us not to run with scissors.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Exactly. But we get to an age where you wouldn't expect me at my age to be riding down the street with training wheels on my 21-speed road racing bicycle, would you?
No.
Going over to the pool, Henry, with my water wings, my little ducky. Hey, look at me.
Uh-huh.
Right? People would start pulling. You think Bill Murray got people to clear out of the pool in Caddyshack with a Baby Ruth. You should see me at my age jump into the pool with the floaties. Oh, it's a Baby Ruth, right? You talk about people pulling their kids out of the pool. Jeff says, Brian, as much as I don't want to do this, I have to follow what we're preaching. My son is home. You know what? Thank you, Jeff. I hope you tone me right now. He's saying my son is home and we're on two different levels of the house because I'm watching Facebook. Time for me to go. Jeff, thank you so very much. I've never meant this more. Thank you so very much for hanging up on me. Thank you so very much, and I'm glad that you're going to get ready. It's hard to believe, Jeff, that you and I have grown to an age where you're old enough to have a son that's you know what I mean? That's traveled back home. So all the best to you, brother. Thank you very much for hanging out with us here at All Natural Being. But Jeff raises a valid point. Henry, Shane, you and I, we're all about the technology. We're all about the bling. I mean, Henry, how many electronic gadgets do we have plugged in here? Just to pull off the All Natural Being every night. So I guess I'm a walking, talking example, right, of what not to do. I'm guessing. I don't know. Final thoughts, Henry?
No, I don't think so. No, I have to say that no. I mean, I think technology is there for us to be able to utilize. It's how we utilize it and what's the purpose for it. What is our intention going into it? And I think with what the intention that you're trying to do, which is get the word out to people, to get them to wake up to what's happening. And so as the walls close in on them, that they finally wake up before they get crushed, they have a way of getting out from between the walls. And so you're trying to do a service for people to get them to grow up and to wake up. So no, there's a whole big difference into what it is that's being done. So yes, you're trying to control what's going on out there through technology, where a lot of people are being controlled by the technology. I mean, look what they're doing with cars nowadays. I mean, they literally drive themselves anymore. So people are actually giving up control to technology, and that's where I think is the big difference between what you're trying to do and what other people are trying to do.
And I will say to you, and then Shane, if you can kind of comment on me for this, People say all the time, oh, and I made fun of the cloud earlier, or it's internet-based this or that. And we're one good solar flare away from saying goodbye to the internet. We're one
Correct.
good nuclear weapon being exploded in the atmosphere away from saying goodbye to Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all the rest. And my question, Shane, is what happens? What's tomorrow morning look like if we wake up and the grid is down and the cloud is gone and our phones literally become paperweights? What's going to happen to an entire generation of people that have been connected to tech? They've been connected to the grid. Like Henry says, we've got these self-driving cars. Well, we've got self-driving cognitions now because we've allowed technology to hijack our cognition. What happens when we wake up and the grid goes down?
It'll look like a whole different level of The Walking Dead.
Yes,
Because nobody will know what to do with each other. They've relied so much on, talking through text messages and through phones and getting information instantaneously from Google and what have you. Nobody will know how to interact with each other. To just be walking around just, glassy-eyed and clueless. And it's sad that it's come to that point, and as you said, we're just one big solar flare or properly placed weapon of mass destruction to put us back to the Stone Age, where we actually have to rely on each other and have a conversation.
Or, Shane, even a hurricane or tornado, a bad thunderstorm, right? The grid is so susceptible to everything. Darren says over in the thread, remedy, ? Hit the woods with a thermos full of coffee. Tune in to the sounds of nature. Learn to breathe. Well, Shane, I think you would call that centering.
Absolutely.
We were talking about that. You were talking about that before. So I'm with Darren. Hit the woods. I love it. Henry and I were talking the other day, and I don't want to go on about it, but if you look at some of the greatest moments in the human mind, Moses went up onto a mountain. Jesus went into the desert. Lao Tzu went into, the forest, went into the wilderness. Jacob wrestled with the angel when he was alone. Muhammad went into a cave.
Sat under a tree.
Right. Buddha sat under a tree. Dalai Lama sat under a tree. Joseph Smith from the Mormon faith walked into the woods of Palmyra, New York. You ever been to Palmyra, New York? If the divine can come to you in Palmyra, New York, the divine can find you anywhere.
It could come anywhere.
It could come anywhere, right? Oh, Sacred Grove, Palmyra, New York. Well, I've been there. Well, okay. So maybe Darren's right. It's that walk in the woods. It's breathing again. You know what I mean? I love the thermos full of coffee, right? Just because you can stay in the woods longer with a thermos full of coffee. But maybe that's it, Shane. Maybe that's the centering. Henry, when we talk about being centered, when we talk about being connected, right? When we talk about the Higgs field, maybe that's it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. I mean, it really is getting back to nature. It's getting back to our energy, getting back to what we really are. This spacesuit, that's just simply surrounding energy. And that energy is interconnected between every human, every plant, the universe. And so it's just understanding that that's the way it is, and that we have this inherent connection with each other. And yet we trust these senses of ours, these mortal senses that are so limited in its scope and its ability to pull in data. And we have to trust a brain that literally has to sort of cliff note the information coming in because it's too much data. And so it cliff notes stuff, which is why when you have a witness, an eyewitness, or several eyewitnesses, you get 5 different stories because of the cliff note version of the data that came into everybody's brain, because it just overloads. It's just too much data. So, I think it's that back to nature. It's that barefoot on the grass, barefoot in the soil, and I go even further and say bare butt in the soil, and really connect with the earth. And that's what destroyed Antiochus was. He lost connection with the earth.
I love that story too. When we talk about that myth, Antiochus was like 150,000 to 0 when it came to wrestling matches. right? He beat talk about ground and pound. He was the first ground and pounder for those of you that are in mixed martial arts. He was the first grounder and pounder. Let me say hello to Mike Murphy. Mike, thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. It was a blast seeing you last weekend. Thank you for stopping by. But Antaeus in the myth, right? He's unbeatable. He gets everyone to the ground, connected to the earth, pounds them into submission. Here comes Hercules. Hercules goes, I can figure out how to crush this guy like a grape. So what does Hercules do? He lifts him up in the air. He disconnects him from the Higgs field, right? He disconnects him from the ground of all being. And then he crushes him like a grape. So Antaeus ends up with 150,000 to 1 was his record, but that one loss was a biggie. And that's what the myth is, about being disconnected from our sense. That's Shane's centering, right? Being disconnected from that centering, that's what makes us vulnerable. That's what makes us feel like we have to be victimized. Right? That's what makes us outraged, when really more it's just maybe just checking our own grounding. Shane, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at any American Indian religion or studies. It's all about Mother Earth and being connected to the earth. You look at Buddhism and all that. It's about connecting with the earth and being a part of it, not just walking through it, mindless and staring at your phone. You lose connection with that, and it's easy to lose connection with yourself. And it doesn't have to be just, literally connection with the earth. It could be connection with your family. It could be, connection with a hobby that you like, something that puts you back in touch with yourself.
Ruthie says, Shane, here in the feed, Ruthie says if people run a rat race over and over day after day, I think the inner spirit just grinds down to dust. I think that's what Henry was saying earlier about, you have your psychological sovereignty, but once that barrier is eclipsed, then your spiritual sovereignty is now vulnerable to being victimized. And I think that's what Ruthie's saying about your spirit just grinds down to a dust, even though that I believe there's dirt in our DNA, right? That whether you walked off the savannas of Africa or you were evicted from the Garden of Eden, right? Your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather comes from the dirt. And I think that's why doctors now, and I would hope at some point, if Mike is able to comment on the thread, that's why I think doctors are saying more and more, you want to do something great for your physical and mental health, walk bare feet in the grass. As Henry says, put your butt in the snow, right? Do what you can to be grounded, to be centered, to reconnect to the earth. And maybe that's the opposite, the antithesis of the Antaeus myth, is reconnect to the same dirt that you come from.
Yes. I totally agree.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. I've gone ahead and run over the hour, but this is great practice for me, so I appreciate it. Shane, thank you so much, especially for taking care of my good friend Henry and keeping him in line. And Rita, Henry, thank you so much for everything. Wayne, if you're still with us, thank you for working with Ruthie throughout the show tonight to figure out. One of the things I think we're identifying, Henry, is that you can get the video on the app, but the feed isn't coming up. Right? So the actual feed itself, well, that makes sense because the feed's here in Facebook, but I think the app is going out via YouTube. So that's something we can work on as well. But I want to thank you all both for taking up some of your evening, calling in and kind of vetting this out with me, because I think the sense of having our cognitions hijacked, being played by a puppet, our technology using us as a tool. Think about it. When you think of a virus entering the human body, it needs us to survive. When technology, in a way, needs us to survive. Henry talked earlier about artificial intelligence. It needs us to survive. So I think from time to time, as Jeff was saying, as Henry was saying, as Shane was saying, let's not let technology treat us like a tool. Let's not be tortured by ourselves and just subjugating ourselves to technology. And maybe that in and of itself is what I mean when I say it's time to take life into your own hands. I think that's what I'm thinking about. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining us this evening. Darren says, I really needed this tonight. Thank you, everyone. Well, Darren, thank you. We absolute blast hanging out with you. Henry, thank you. Shane, thank you so very much. We're going to let you all go. Parting thoughts before we do?
No, thank you, Darren. I appreciate that, too. No, I just, God, be us. Find a way to track ourselves back, take a deep breath, and let's take a look at getting grounded and realizing that what's out there, what's exterior to us doesn't matter. It's what's inside of us that matters, and we need to weed through an awful lot of mashugana to get down to the real us.
I love that word. I love that word. Shane, I think Henry's talking about being centered again, isn't he? When he says, get out from underneath all the mashugana.
Absolutely. And I would challenge anyone to challenge themselves and take an hour. We'll start with 30 minutes and put all of the technology away and just be.
Sure.
Just breathe. Just look around. Just step away from all of the inputs and just look inward and see what that gets you.
You know what, Shane? I call it putting your lungs through the paces. Right?
Sure,
using the lungs
absolutely.
the way you were intended. They're lungs, for goodness sakes. You're supposed to move your diaphragm when you breathe. You're, putting your lungs through their full range of motion. So I'm with you. I also want to end on this thought. Ruthie Rader says, thank you so much, Wayne. You rock. Well, Ruthie, I think there's a ton of the people in this thread that would agree with you. Wayne does rock. And as Rita says, and that's as great a line to close on as any, there is no one like you. Be grateful for what you have in this life. Well, Shane, I'm absolutely grateful for your friendship. Henry and Rita, I'm absolutely grateful for your friendship as well. Thank you guys for calling in this evening and getting us on track for this hour. And we'll be off, as you know, tomorrow night, Friday and Saturday. We'll be rebuilding yet again, version 7, right, Henry? But we'll be rebuilding the studio again to be able to accommodate some of the other things that we'll be announcing next week. But Shane and Henry, thank you so very much for joining us. Everyone, we're going to go ahead and say goodnight to them, and then we're going to wrap up here. But thank you guys so very much.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay. Good night, guys. All right, so here's what we're going to do as we get ready to wrap up this evening for All Natural Being. Thank you for all the input. Thank you for all your insights. Everyone that called in, or Shane and Henry that called in, but everyone here in the thread, thank you so very much for joining us at All Natural Being. And I like Darren's idea about going for a walk in the woods with a thermos full of coffee. I like Shane's idea about centering. Well, I like Henry's idea about putting your butt, you know what I mean, just sitting in the dirt. But there's got to be a reason why all kinds of doctors had to tell the group we're playing board games. Shane, I hope you're still listening and you can hear that. Henry, I hope you're still listening. They're playing board games. Good for you, Jeff. Good for you, brother. It's nice to see your icon pop up. Thank you so very much for joining us this evening. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. As I said, we won't be here tomorrow and Saturday night, but we'll be back Sunday night with a new and improved version 17 of the All Natural Being Studios here, coming to you live from Columbus, Ohio. Thank you all so very much. And in the interim, don't forget this weekend, go be you.
IPMNation.com.